The Story Vault presents The Berserker. Episode 4. Encounter in the Wilderness. The wind screamed through the narrow ravine, snow whipping around them in a blinding flurry. The Berserker stopped abruptly, his sharp gray eyes scanning the white-shrouded forest. He raised his hand, and the girl halted behind him, clutching her thin shawl tightly around her shoulders. Suddenly, a voice bellowed through the storm. "Stop where you are!" Figures emerged from the snow, their shapes blurred by the swirling white. A band of marauders, ragged, armed, and grinning like wolves who'd found their prey. Their leader, a hulking man with a jagged scar across his face, stepped forward, his breath misting in the icy air. "Well, look at this," the leader sneered, his greedy eyes settling on the girl. "A big brute and a little prize. Hand her over, and we might let you live." The girl shrank back instinctively, her golden hair catching the pale light, her fragile beauty standing out in the storm's harshness. The Berserker stood motionless, his broad shoulders dusted with snow, a silent wall between her and the danger ahead. The marauders laughed. Their leader gestured with his rusted sword. "Have it your way." They charged. The Berserker moved like a force of nature, grabbing his axe from the ground. The sound of steel clashing echoed through the ravine as he parried their crude weapons. His strikes were precise, each blow sending a marauder sprawling into the snow. The girl ducked behind a boulder, her breath visible as she gasped for air. Her heart pounded as she watched the Berserker fight, each movement a mixture of ferocity and control. His massive frame cut through the chaos like a storm of his own. But then, a marauder armed with a bow took aim from the shadows. She spotted him before the Berserker did, and panic surged through her. Her fingers closed around a jagged rock lying in the snow. Summoning her courage, she hurled it with all her strength. The Berserker turned, his storm-gray eyes locking onto hers for the briefest of moments. A flicker of respect passed between them before he grabbed a spear from a fallen marauder and hurled it with deadly accuracy, striking their leader. The marauders faltered, their leader dead. The survivors scattered into the storm, their shapes vanishing into the swirling white. The forest fell silent, save for the howling wind and the creak of snow-laden branches. The Berserker and the girl pressed on through the frozen wilderness. The girl struggled to keep up as exhaustion set in, her trembling hands clutching the edges of her shawl. But it was no match for the bitter cold. At last, they found shelter, a small clearing sheltered by jagged rocks. The Berserker worked quickly, stacking wood for a fire. The girl sank onto a fallen log, too tired to speak, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The fire sprang to life, casting flickering shadows on the rocks and melting the frost from their faces. From the supplies they had scavenged, the Berserker retrieved a thick fur cloak. Without a word, he draped it over her shoulders. It nearly swallowed her, the heavy folds of fur emphasizing her petite frame. She pulled it tighter, her wide blue eyes glimmering in the firelight. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft and trembling. The Berserker nodded, lowering himself onto the ground opposite her. His face, hardened by years of battle, seemed softer in the warm glow of the fire. Snow fell steadily outside the clearing, the storm's fury quieting as the night deepened. The girl glanced at him, her golden hair peeking from beneath the fur. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "They won't," he said simply. "Not after tonight." Her shoulders relaxed, and for the first time, she allowed herself to feel safe. She leaned slightly toward the fire, her cheeks flushed pink from its warmth. The tension in her body eased, her tired eyes fluttering shut for a moment. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly, her voice carrying a fragile vulnerability. "You didn't have to." The Berserker's gaze shifted from the fire to her. His reply was quiet, yet it carried the weight of his own unseen scars. No one deserves change.